Hello guys, what's up and welcome to yet another review, and today we are going to be taking a look at something special. We are not going to be reviewing any Matchbox or Hot Wheels cars, but instead we are going to be reviewing a PVC anime figure that I just bought online for the price of $30. Now, this is a bootleg figurine. Yes, it is a bootleg figurine, and it is a Oshitsuke something 6 scale, and the artist that drew this magnificent figure of this very lewd anime character is Ishike. If you've ever watched hentai and all that, you will surely know who am I talking about. So this is her. Now, I may cause a little bit of controversy here due to the fact that I am reviewing a bootleg figure, but then again, to be honest though, at the price of $30, you are getting yourself a lot of stuff for something that's supposed to be cost around $200, $300, and I do believe that not a lot of people that likes anime, that likes the hobby won't be able to afford that much in their figurines, and they can only purchase something like this, and in my opinion it is not exactly that bad because I have a lot of good things to say about this figure. It is by far a very well detailed anime figurine, and yes, the sculpt does look legitimate. In real life at least, like on camera it may look a little bit off, but in real life everything checks out. Like, this is definitely something that you can look and you can simply say that this is really difficult to distinguish from an original or a fake. And oh, by the way, due to the fact that this figure is extremely lewd, don't worry about it. I have censored all the naughty parts by using my trusty tissue paper, so we weren't gonna get demonetized. YouTube isn't gonna get us. See that? There are no naughty bits showing, so I can safely show this on YouTube and call it safe for work because she is technically not naked, even though if you remove all those parts, she is actually showing all her naughty bits. So let's just cut on to the chase and let's talk about detail of this figure. The detail of this figure. Starting off, we got ourselves the head sculpt. Now, the head sculpt of this figurine is surprisingly good, and you can see from this reflection there, it is pretty much a legitimate anime face. I mean, there is no doubt that maybe I'm wrong. That kind of looks like a ghost reflection, but hey, it looks like a very legitimate thing to behold. Now, well, maybe not. I mean, like on camera, it kind of looks weird, but in real life, it is actually pretty good. Pretty sure that original is much better than this because that costs about $200 to $300, while this thing only costs $30. And yeah, the head sculpt looks like that from front. From the side is probably a little bit wonky for those people who collect anime figurines, but for me it is good enough. I mean, I'm only going to be spending $30 for this, and sure will a lot of people. So for them $30 is good enough, and they can show their appreciation for the world of anime. And if they're that desperate to get themselves a hentai figurine, it is not that bad. See that? That's pretty cute. So yeah, it is a very decent anime figurine, like I've told you. The head is removable though, like you can just take this off and there you go. You will reveal the neck joint, and the head itself is pretty hefty. There is a certain heft to the head here, and I have to say that I'm quite impressed with how they managed to get this done. Let's look at that, all that detail there, detail in the eyes, detail in the mouth. There is actually some teeth detail going on. They do paint the teeth, and the mouth is painted as well, and well, it's kind of light coloration, because in the original one is a lot more wetter and more darker than that. And the eyes, we're supposed to be looking at the left, but in some angles it may look like she has a dead stare, like she's staring into space. So that's like one weakness of this cheap bootleg figurines, that they really don't know how to render the eyes properly. And you know, at least there's no face warping. Like, one of the main issues with these bootleg figures, like back in the past, is that the face tend to warp because it's a recast. But from this figure, I have to say that the side profile looks right, correct, everything that checks out. It looks like a legitimate figurine. It has that good heft of PVC in it. And just look at all the spikes underneath her head, and it's pretty thorny. So I have to say that this is actually a stolen sculpt, stolen cast. Yes, a stolen cast. Like, I've heard cases in which bootleggers will pay the factory workers that make this figurines to sell them the molds of the products that they're making for a good price. And I heard that happen a lot in China. So I had to say that this is probably one of those cases where the original mold got stolen, got taken away from the original hands, because this is a very, very good sculpt. I mean, this looks pretty legitimate. This is not a recast, I do believe. I mean, the detail is just so good. I mean, it's a little bit off in the painting section, but the sculpt is all good. And if you're not planning to buy this as like some kind of a thing that you would like to modify later, probably paint it yourself to put thinner on it, you just want the sculpt so you can paint your own figurine, then I would suggest you just buy the bootlegs instead, like this kind of bootlegs, because I do believe that this figure is molded straight from the original molds that was bought by the triads that collect the molds of these original figurines. Good Smile has mentioned about this, and the detail in this just so great that I'm starting to suspect that that is actually the case. For 30 bucks, you're gonna get yourself that really good detail in the clothing there and the skirting there. Everything checks out. Not that bad. Not bad at all, bootleggers. You did a good job. You guys did a good job on the sculpt there. I mean, the hand is pretty much indistinguishable from the original. Now, I haven't seen the original in real life, so I cannot give you a comparison, because like the original cost way too much money, like 200 bucks. $200 for a bunch of plastic. Can you imagine that? Well, I can just, give $30 to someone in China, and you're gonna get yourself all this thing. Okay, maybe the back is not sculpted well, but I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be like a defect in manufacturing or something. But it looks legit. That does look like the back of a person. There's nothing really off about it. I mean, in real life it looks great. So this is the back side of the figurine. As you can see there, I have censored some of the naughty bits so I won't get demonetized. The paint is a little bit pale. I do not think that the figure actually looks like this in real life. The original figure actually looks like this. I mean, because this is like way too pale for your own consideration. Such a good looking figure actually. Like even in real life, there's no doubt that this is going to be a very decent addition to your collection if you do not have the ability to buy this in the first place. And one of the things that will probably bother you with this figure is that due to the fact that this hand over here is not touching the mirror, it is like so far apart. I mean, like the original figures, I've seen it that they also have this problem, but it is not that this gigantic gap. It is usually a lot closer. Maybe it's due to the fact that this particular figure is a little bit harder than the original one. The original one, if I'm not mistaken, the plastic is a lot more softer because they use like a bunch of pesticides in them in order to make them softer. Well, this one is just hard plastic. Not bad at all. So that's why we got ourselves this issue where there's like a lot of things are going to be caked apart. So that's the detail on the front and the left. So let's just take a look at the detail down below. On her feet, that's the detail on her pantyhose. No, not pantyhose, on her socks and stockings. And supposedly this figure is supposed to come with like a little bit of attachment on her naughty bits, and those are not available. Apparently they do not. This one does not come with that. But however, inside this part of her, there contains like a magnet or a piece of metal in which you can attach anything metallic or magnetic in it, and it will stick on it like glue. Now the floor, the diorama on this thing is actually technically a diorama, and the floor here is made out of velvet, and this is real velvet. Like you can definitely feel the texture there. And the glass is made out of clear plastic. Details on the panties, details on the stockings, and so far not a bad figure at all. I mean, like you have to cherry pick in order to to criticize this part over here. I mean, that is pretty legit in my opinion. So yeah, for sculpt, I have to say that I'll give it an 8 out of 10. There's very little flaw with the sculpt, and it looks very nice. 80%, just like what the original seller of this figurine told me, that 90% of it is just the same thing as the original. So yeah, and now it's time to discuss the paint. Now, as you could see, due to the fact that this is a figurine that is pretty much has a dead-on sculpt with the original figure, the paint department has left a lot to be desired. Now, as I have told you earlier, that the eyes, they are so disappointingly painted. Like they're not painted well, because it looks as if she has that dead stare, that 1,000-yard stare. She's supposed to be looking behind her, but she isn't looking at anything at all, to be honest. Like she's just staring into the darkness of space, and the mouth is not painted well as well. It's supposed to be something of a wet glossy color, but instead of that we got this really awful light colored thing. Her fingers has no shading on it, which is really different than original. Usually anime figures will have some shading on the fingers in order to give them more definition, so you'll be able to see them clearly. And that's about it. And of course, we haven't said anything about the naughty parts. I've already seen it, and there's literally no paint there. They just left it blank, which is kind of disappointing. But one part in which they don't disappoint is, of course, the two parts over here that I've censored because I can show it to you guys. Yeah, those are painted really well, though. I really like the way that they look. So, and the hair is actually not that bad. I do know that in figures like these, the hair tend to be shiny, too shiny, too shiny, and too glossy to the point that it just looks cheap. But in this one, it's different. Like the hair is actually matte color, which is matte, which is kind of surprising. Because original anime figurines, they have this matte coloration on the hair in order to know whether or not the figurine is real, and this one has that same matte coloring as the original figurine, which is really surprising. Just look at the reflection of that. The reflection is kind of weird, but this figure sells it. This figure definitely sells it. Yeah, regarding the sculpt again, there's like a bunch of seams on it, like sculpt lines, like seam lines, as you can see there on this part. I don't think that exists in the original version of this figurine. Then again, you're paying $300, so it better not come with that. I do not know though. I need to take a more in-depth look to the original $300 one. But unfortunately, I cannot afford that for the time being, and I don't think I can afford it at all to begin with, because I am such a cheapskate, and I cannot simply justify paying $200, $300 for these figures. I mean, they're just plastic, and Ishike, if I'm not mistaken, barely get any money from this, for the sale of these figurines, because the one that's going to be credited as the artist for this is actually the sculptor. Ishike probably going to get like 1-2% royalty fees from the fact that he drew the artwork and everything. So if I love Ishike, I wouldn't consider buying this figure to be supporting him. Instead, I will be buying his Doujin series or his art books, because those are directly linked to him. But for these figurines though, it's mostly just the company and the artist, the sculpt artist, that will be paid if I bought the original one. And not to mention that right now you cannot get any of this new. All of them will be used because they are all sold out. This figure actually sold like hotcakes back when it was first released. So that's like another point to consider when you are considering whether or not if you should buy yourself the bootleg version of this figurine. And I have to say that it is not that bad of an option. It's really good. I will say that. I mean, every single part is just, it's not crappy bootleg, it is just decent bootleg. So I would definitely suggest all of you, if you find these for like $30, just snatch them as fast as you can, because I don't think that the bootleggers are going to be making more of these. So my final thoughts and verdict on this figurine. Well, in my opinion, definitely get it. Like for $30, you really are getting yourself a lot of things. I mean, do notice that this is a 1/6 scale figure. It is much larger than your typical NECA figurine or your any other $30 figurine out there, and it is decently detailed. I mean, the paint job application is actually quite great, and and not to mention that it is kind of a loot figurine, and you really can't get that amount of level of stuff in a $30 package. This is something to behold. It is not something that you can easily get for that amount. $30 is actually a pretty good deal for this kind of figurine. I have to say that the bootleggers, even though I really don't want to admit it, I mean, there's some people out there that's gonna think that what I say is a bit of controversy due to the fact that you need to buy original and stuff like that. But in my opinion, though, for $30, you're getting pretty much all you expect from a PVC figure of this magnitude. I mean, everything is just so good, and if it gets you up, I guess just buy it. It's not that bad, actually. Not that bad at all. I would definitely recommend this at that $30 price point. Is such a good figurine. Very, very well detailed. The paint job is a little bit off. I have to say that if you compare it from the original, but then again, in real life, it's really difficult for you to distinguish between the original and the fake to begin with. Maybe to keen eye, they may notice the seam lines on her butt over there, so they can easily tell if it's a fake figurine. But for someone who is very new to PVC collecting, they will have no idea whatsoever, because this figure looks just so good. Everything is just well put on that it is borderline impossible for you to tell the difference, because everything is just so good with this figure. I mean, it has that anime look. I mean, that is an anime face. You wouldn't just get this and pass it out as some kind of a fake. It can potentially be a real one, and for $30 you're getting yourself a lot of bang for your buck. So there you go. If you are looking for a cheap figurine, anime figurine that you just want to add to your collection, just so you can say that you're part of the gang, I will happily recommend this to the folks out there, to you poor folks out there. If you can afford the $300 bill to buy an original. It is pretty impressive. I would say paying $300 for something like this, even if it's just slightly better sculpt, I would call that scam. I wouldn't be happy with it. If you do value your money, I guess. So that's it for my review of the bootleg 1/6 scale Oshitsuke figure that's inspired by the work of Ishike. Hope you guys like it and probably have some thoughts about it. Maybe you'd consider purchasing this to be part of your collection, just to check out whether or not the bootleg is good or no. And I'll see you again next time in a different review, perhaps an anime figure review, because right now I'm collecting a bunch of bootleg figurines that I haven't seen the review yet on the internet, and I'm trying to make a collection of those on YouTube. something that only I do and nobody else. So to end this video, I'll give you a B-roll of this figure with all of its censored parts still attached. I'm so sorry about that. I cannot have YouTube ban me for such something silly mistake.